Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to. I'm trying to figure out when I'm going to be posting this throughout the week. I'm not sure what day these are going to be posted on, but welcome back. As many people have asked, as many people knew, I actually, early Kip, actually streamed a lot of RuneScape. And I kind of fell out for a little bit because, there just wasn't really any reason for me to stay in the game for a little bit. And we even had a little bit of controversy, if you will, with some of the nerfs and some of the combat styles and stuff. So naturally, I figured that what I should do as well is, because I'm currently playing Final Fantasy XIV, right? And I'm actually having a blast in 14. I feel like I should actually come back to RuneScape for a little bit, and maybe I'll mix some OSRS in here as well. I have a buddy who's been interested in getting me to OSRS. Are you playing RuneScape? I'm playing 3 right now. I might swap to OSRS. I know Dragon Spit, streamer I follow, excellent YouTuber if you haven't checked them out, is currently playing through OSRS. But I figured I'd take a look and see about what's going on as I've come back. My stat block isn't the best. Did I really actually made it to 90 Slayer. Oh my god. I thought I was still like 70. Wow, that I was not expecting that. Although, unfortunately, it is a skill that goes over 100 at this point. It's a skill that goes over 99 because you have to be, what is it, 112 for... No, it's 104, right? It's for the Dragonkin. They require a Slayer level now. I have old school as well. Well, I have it as well. I'm probably gonna have to delete my old school because I tried. That's a Monkey D. Luffy. That's amazing. I actually ended up trying to do an Iron Man, group Iron Man, and I just kind of fell out of it. But we'll see. I mean, empty inventory for entering. Oh, right, I forgot about that. Yeah, there's so much that I don't even remember about this game. Although apparently double XP is going on right now. We're gonna pause that because I might actually want to take advantage of that. But a lot of this is going to be just kind of, for the next hour-ish, 45 minutes-ish. Figured we'd kind of go over some of the things. And if anyone has any questions in chat about RuneScape that I might be able to answer, absolutely. I figured that I should be able to answer those in what capacity I can. I guess my accomplishments, accolades, right? I mean, I do have the Igneous Kalmej. I don't have the hard mode ZUK clear. Unfortunately, I actually don't have the skills to do that right now because I have to. Disruption break is necessary for, what is it? It's pizza phase. No, it's not pizza phase. I think it's wall in hardcore ZUK boss fight, right? But that becomes problematic because disruption barrier, I think it is. Disruption barrier is kind of necessary for that to eat some of those hits. Yeah. If you know OSRs. Oh, no, I'll be fine. I ended up paying for a year of this, and it should extend as well to, it should extend to my, to old school as well. But I definitely appreciate that. So, RuneScape, I guess we'll kind of use this as an introduction. RuneScape's been going on for many, many years. We started with something that I actually never got to play, which was RuneScape 1. Remember, we were talking old, remember 2008? This is before that. RuneScape 1 was a period of time, I'll tell you what. I saw videos of it, and, man, it was just a different era altogether. Figure, I guess let's go to Lumbridge first. Let's go to Lumbridge and kind of start from scratch there. So, RuneScape 2 came about, which is now old school RuneScape. And now we have RuneScape 3. RuneScape 3, the only reason that it came around was because of the EOC, the Evolution of Combat. So as you'll notice, which any Final Fantasy XIV players in chat will probably look at this and probably start crying. Not that Final Fantasy players don't have hotbars that they have to deal with, right? Like Red Mage, the new Viper class, right? It's probably going to be very immersive with their bars. This is probably the bare minimum I can get away with. And there's still more that I need. So, for example, I'm playing Magic right now, right? G-Conk, because you have to actually weapon swip in this. Your RuneScape kind of functions on kit switching to a degree. It's actually, I think, more prominent in old school RuneScape where you can be fighting somebody. You can do have a PvP environment, right? And you can go from full mage, clicking on your inventory, to swap out all of it. So now you're melee. Now you're like a melee kit, and then you suddenly can have a leg up on, say, someone who's a ranger, right? But then they can full kit swap. It is a very high skill ceiling PvP environment, is what I'm trying to say. And I don't like when you have to tank hits in boss fights, right? And we'll get to that in a kind of a bossing segment. But I mean, so what they ended up doing was they definitely overhauled some of these regions, right? I think a lot of people that have played RuneScape before remember Lumbridge. Movement's actually been increased a little bit. You do have surges, though that's a thing now. It's a combat ability, and it'll move you 10 squares in a direction, which is it's neat. It's neat for movement. As you can imagine, though, definitely into high tier boss fights, this definitely gets a little strange. I'm running kind of as of about when Zamorak was dropping, I'm running a kit that was focused on high tier PVM content. I couldn't do Zamorak 1000% in rage. Like I could. I don't have the skill for that. I don't have the ability to click that many buttons, right? But it's very. Oh, Ring of Death also got reworked. Fuck, I need to look at death costs because that's actually super relevant. Coming back, I'm actually in a nerfed state, which is unfortunate. So, and this is kind of coming from somebody that's gone into 14, right? So let's talk about in 14, right? And I'm still in ARR, and people that play 14 can probably, they can probably attest to this. Where if you're trying to do content, say you're trying to do an alliance raid, right? AR, right? I mean, you're going to have your level 50 kit, right? Or technically, if you're higher level, like you have your 70, 80 kit, but it scales down to 50, the best tier of 50 that it possibly can be, right? You'll notice also as we're moving around, RuneScape has a big issue with like clutter everywhere. There's a lot, like this was not here in old school RuneScape back in the day. This was the mining pit outside of Varrock, and hey, best of luck to you, buddy. But you'll notice when you start walking places, you can't go 5 feet without seeing something. Very, very cluttered for a lot of people, which is fine. And what was I saying? I was going back to bossing, right? So this is endgame boss armor, and in order to do a lot of the endgame content, you are going to have switches. Melee is notorious for really bad switches, actually. Melee is... I should probably actually go to... This was before the events of Extinction. Oh, right, yeah, because Extinction's probably still one of my favorite quests. So, for example, even with magic, right? You see how my G-Conk right here isn't active, and it requires 2x, right? Meaning I have to dual wield. So how I get around this is mid-combat, I have to swap, and then I have to hit G-Conk, and then I have to swap back to FSOA, because FSOA does more damage being a two-handed, and I have access to the special ability, which instability allows me to, on crit, do an extra basic attack, right? So I guess in like Final Fantasy XIV terms, right, instead of having like your scholar book, right, like your summoner book, or having your axe as a warrior class, right, you have an axe, but you also have access to like a sword, you have access to, sword and shield, and you'll need that for specific things. Final Fantasy XIV, as far as I'm aware, actually used to do something like this. They used to do where you had to multi-class into other things to get generic skills, and that is an issue that RuneScape runs into. Is this RuneScape? Yeah, it's RuneScape. I ended up buying a year membership because it was there, and so I'm just kind of coming back to it with like the 14 mindset in mind, if that makes sense. So I'm also curious how bad magic is, especially after Necromancy came out and the nerf to FSOA, and I think it was it Animate Dead or Crypt Bloom that got nerfed. Anyways. So RuneScape has that effect as well, where you have skills that are just good for everything, and it becomes problematic where you have stuff like Disruption Barrier, right? Where imagine if you were playing a black mage, but then you're like, oh, well, I have to go and play, got to go play monk in order to get a like focus ability, but that focus ability will make it so that way you take like 30% less damage or something like that, right? But now any class can use it after you've done that. That's where you have limitless ability. That's where you have not tendrils, reflect. That's where you have debilitate, devotion as well. And there are certain things that are locked behind really expensive codexes, like greater chain. Greater Chain's a really, really good ability that a lot of mages will use in their mage builds, and that ends up causing problems because suddenly to get the best access out of anything, suddenly you're paying out the ass, which is why going into 14, I was like, well, so if I'm going to go fight Ultimate Weapon, right, MSQ Ultimate Weapon, right, like, I mean, are there drops that I'm going for? Is it going to drop a codex for a specific skill? No, thankfully 14 is a lot more user-friendly than that. RuneScape players will never quit. I have a buddy also asking me to come back to old school. He's been asking me for a minute, and I figure it's something to put up on the TV channel because people like RuneScape anyways. But you see what I mean? Also, like, you can't go 5 feet without something being here. Like, you have a crevice, you have Barbarian Village where that used to be, you have Edgeville, you got Dwarf Cannon stuff, and within inside of that you see Falador. It almost feels like it's compacted from old school, because I went back to old school RuneScape and it was like night and day. Like, I have to actually run places and walk places, and it's just so weird to see. Like, you have your Barbarian Village, and that's inside of the Dwarf Cannon quest, that's inside of the Invention Guild, that's inside of, I remember the name of the city over there. That's inside of the other quest location over here for one of the smithing quests, which is in location of Falador. It's 14 is a lot more spaced out, and I'm really loving it. The new areas feel up to scale. Really? Which new areas was it? Was it the new continent, or was that old school? Varrock. No, Varrock was the other one. This is Fali. This is Falador, which is the infamous Falador drop party happened here in old school. So. But yeah, you can see that there's a lot of clutter. It's very different than something in terms of 14. Very different than what I've seen in early WoW. It's really its own thing. Like, even ESO, right? I mean, ESO is kind of Skyrim-esque, right? Oh, I forgot that actually. Wait, but I did that quest. Oh, it might be because I did that quest that statue's missing now. Because then it should be in the Queen's Garden. Events that you do in quests will impact the overworld in certain occasions like that. Like, there's a statue that was there, but then in your game, right, on your character, you will have a, missing statue there because you did a specific quest. Questing in RuneScape, actually, why it's taken me months to finish ARR. Look at all these quests. All the green are what I've done, the yellow what I haven't done, and red, yellow in progress. Red is what I haven't done. And I have really tried my best to get to the point I have. Like, it looks like, Kip, it's fine. You got, like, it's like about half of them. I mean, yeah, sure, I got 223 out of 448 quest points, right? That's about half. Some of these take a while. Yes, I did do one small favor, and I absolutely hated it. It took me 90 minutes even with a guide. Is a capital, but so is Varrock. Yeah, think of them like capitals of different, like, provinces and stuff. So if you look at the map, right? So if we... Is that really as far as I can zoom out? I thought I could zoom out more. I thought there was a little Easter egg out here, actually. Is it this one? Is that it? No, Dragontooth Isle is something else. Yeah, that's a farming spot for wisps. There used to be an island out here that people would be, when they go to GM baby jail, using 14 terminology, right? Love you, 14. They would throw them to an island, have a trial there for them. Yeah, one small favor is notorious in quest design, which is interesting. So this is effectively the world map, albeit I can't, zoom out all the way. And you'll notice that there's... Oh, I forgot about Lost Grove. I forgot that's where Solak is. I've never done Solak, actually. Fun fact. Yeah, you have your ports. A lot of it you can actually kind of see certain European influences, and that's kind of where RuneScape is. So, like, Final Fantasy, right? You have your Alliance raids, right? And you have your Final Fantasy 3 bosses, your Bone Dragon, your I can't remember the name of the other bosses right now. Cerberus as well, right? Weren't they from 3? So you have RuneScape, which takes a lot of influence from European folklore and European influence and stuff like that, right? And even then, outside of that, so you have Sears Village, right? And notice you have Camelot. Yes, King Arthur's in this game. You get to meet him, stuff like that. Fremennik, more your Norse area. Lunar Waterbirth Isle. That's for... I can't remember which one that is for specifically. That should be Lunar Isle, right? No, Miscellany, etc., is different. These are kind of more magic-based questline. People like floating and stuff. Fremennik Isles, more Norse stuff. Pirates Cove, Yarhar. This is at Lunar Isle. Yeah, Lunar Isle has a lot of magic to it. I don't remember Ungale being here. Is this a new edition or is this old? I don't remember that being there. Iceberg, here be penguins. There's also memes and stuff like that there. For Vorkath coming on the 20th. No, I have not. So actually, in regard to that, I'm still on Civil War 2 because I refuse to go into the fucking wilderness. Because it was still bugged last I heard. But that was also months ago. Part of it was that, like, people could still force you into doing certain actions, and that would cause issues. Yeah, I haven't actually even done. Yeah, I haven't done Civil War or Succession. Like I haven't done any of that. But even then, okay, it's old. Yeah, I've never been there. Then it took me until like last year to fucking actually beat Dagonoth Kings. Let's put it that way. Dracula's and Draenor, etc. No, I have not done those quests. I'm actually a little behind, and I need to figure out if I need to raise Necromancy or not. I don't know how good it is as a style. A lot of asshole PKers, and that's the thing is like I've lost billions of GP in the wilderness over the years, and I don't want to go back to the wilderness if I don't have to. I get that Jagex is wanting to change it, and which actually still actually kills a lot more of the PvP aspects this game is going for. Like I'm next to Falador, like I can go find it. There's like a couple instances left where there is PvP area. Like they took out the duel arena because of staking, right? Because people betting on matches with in-game GP. Well, I guess did it go out? I think it was because it went to outside, right? Like people were actually staking IRL money for that. So yeah, they have to technically deal with that. They have to be like, yeah, we have to put a stop to this. So the duel arena's out. The wilderness is supposed to be more of a safe zone now. However, they try to keep a little bit of it retained with its PvP nature, but the effect for all purposes is neutered. If you're looking for PvP, I would arguably recommend old school RuneScape. It was banned because bonds. Yeah, because that's real money. You can spend in-game money, but you can spend actual money for bonds, and that opens them up. I think it's to a lot more problematic things. No, but here's the thing. So Gamer's Grotto is one of the only areas in the game left, right? Yeah, items not dropped on death. Just need to make sure. Look how empty it is, right? You have nobody in Gamer's Grotto on World 4. So we're going to leave, right? Oh, okay. Well, that's if you wanted to safe risk it. What about the people that are like, oh, well, it's fine, right? You own a free-for-all, right? It's dead. I don't think there's a PvP scene left for RuneScape 3, personally. And if there is, it's very niche and very hard to get into. And yeah, you will run into clans that will just want to PK players. You'll run into clans that want to counter PK the PKers, right? Very, very interesting in terms of actual, like, PvE versus PvP. I would say if you're going into RuneScape or looking at RuneScape, RuneScape 3 is strictly for PvE, in my opinion. However, if you are wanting PvP, you should probably go to old school RuneScape because it also has full kit switching as well. So RuneScape 3 is just kind of a different experience. I think they've gone more of the PvE route. I think they've gone more towards the route that is bossing and stuff. RuneScape also isn't without its controversy as well. Because how do I get to Yak Track again? Is it adventures, customization? I'm trying to remember where it's at. Upgrades and extras. Yeah. This is another pass, right? Was this what Callum Upton was talking about, where you have to buy another pass and like it's actually like work to do this, but also has like stupid rewards, like a 30% damage resistance in ED4, one of the like ED3 and ED4, like the dungeons, right? Actual like pay to win stuff for having a battle pass. So there's that, which was a recent controversy. Solomon's General Store, don't really care. Like it's whatever. It's a cash shop, right? Like you're gonna fucking run into that anyways. Oops, that shouldn't have happened. It did, but then they removed it. Oh, so they reneged on that. Okay, that's interesting. That's actually fairly interesting to me. I actually didn't know they reneged on it. But that was a huge controversy recently in regards to selling power, so to speak. Solomon's General Store, buying cosmetics, who gives a crap? We've all bought cosmetics, right? Like, I don't really care. It doesn't necessarily make the game worse. Treasure Hunter has been pretty notorious over the years. I figure if I'm going to say something, right? If I'm going to tell you something and like, hey, should you play this game? Should you not play this game, right? Well, I mean, I figure I should at the very least be fair, right? I should be fair and I should tell you, yes, this is what you're going to be looking at in this game. If you're a member, you get X amount of keys per day, right? So, I mean, you're able to, just kind of go about your day, right? That kind of thing. But you can, it's like, oh, well, what about if I wanted to buy more than just the keys, Kip? That's where you start spending money. And now you see how this turns into a little bit of a nightmare, right? Because in order to get power-ups like this, Protean Traps, right? A consumable that you put down and are just able to not use a specific trap to catch hunter animals with, right? Interesting. Suddenly, we're starting to pay for power again, right? I've actually never heard of a Slayer wildcard. That's interesting. So yes, if you have the ability, and I don't know how this compares to like Black Desert Online. I actually really don't. If you are looking into RuneScape, you have to be cognizant that you are buying power. You have the ability to buy for power. I don't know, $70 cosmetic might make the game worse looking at Diablo 4. And that's the thing, right? At that point, you have ceased to be a microtransaction. You are now a macro transaction. When you start doing $70 to $20 skin, $30 skins, mate, back in like 2008 when I actually had like money, right? Started to get money, right? Like I bought Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Game of the Year. And like, yeah, that's like $60. But even then you can buy the expansion for that, right? Or like the Fallout 3 expansion disc as well. And those are like $20 back in the day for multiple expansions, right? So that's a problem when you start looking at, oh, well, it's just $20 for a skin. Oh, it's just $30 for a skin, right? Suddenly you're not in microtransaction territory. Suddenly you're paying a full-on expansion fee for something like that. And it's not fair entirely, in my opinion. Yes, absolutely, inflation's a thing. $2.99 back in the day is different now. That was back then money. It was 2004 horse armor money, right? Acts more like catch-up mechanic. It is. Without Treasure Hunter, I would not have these. I would not have these stats that I did. I still need to hit 120 Herblore, but I mean, like, I would not have these stats without Treasure Hunter. I just would not. I just wouldn't. And like that comes down to same thing in 14, right? Same thing in Final Fantasy XIV. If you're playing and you want to get Divine Serpent Arancum pet, right? Or I guess the mount, technically, right? And you have to do the Beast Tribe quests in Shadowbringers, right? Well, you got to play through the main MSQ. You got to get to the Beast Tribes in that. I mean, you have cool little things like this. Just Bird God. Technically, he shouldn't even be around here anymore. He should be removed from my game state, which is interesting because Guthix happened. Moving on. But yeah, it's like, it's an interesting game. I would not go into this saying that you're going to go endgame PvP. I just would not personally. I think that there's a lot of time investment. I think that's one of those you should build up to it. You should see if you like the evolution of combat system, first of all. And then if you like it, then absolutely. I feel that you should be more than welcome to do that stuff. My Edgeville is still on fire. Is it? What quest was Edgeville on fire in? Like, I vaguely remember. But once again, eye clutter, right? You got these majestic ships. You got these buildings. You got Armadill's God Tower. You have not Burgundy Rot. That's way on the other side of the map. You have Draenor, right? This Draenor to Port Sarim felt longer in RuneScape 2. And then you have your random port portal. You're a new player. What is a port portal? Why should I care? What does Quartermaster Gully do? What is I actually still don't know what he does. I know he brings you to an island. I don't know anything else about that. But the eye clutter is real. And I don't know. Maybe if people want, maybe I can. No, because I don't really understand the system. I'd be like, I can clarify some of this, but it's like I don't know enough of the systems myself. It's a very interesting game to get into, and I've definitely thought in the past to maybe have a new player stream in the future. Like, can I necessarily give everyone a Luck of the Dwarves? What are you at market price? Still 80 mil, at least on examination, so probably higher on a GE. I mean, like, I can't necessarily give everyone like a Luck of the Dwarves, right? But if someone's starting out, right, wouldn't it be cool if someone's like, hey, have this ruin like full arm, have this full ruin set, right? Just like, just take it. It's fine, right? Because I can make ruin. I can grind that in like a couple hours. I wouldn't do endgame PvP. I'd rather complete my OSRS quests and skill grind first. Right, absolutely. And, I think RuneScape leaning into the PvE niche for RuneScape 3 specifically does help a little bit because now you're able to not really focus on PvP. For example, one of the issues with endgame PvP, right, or even PvP in general, right, if I wanted to do anything in the wilderness, if I wanted to hop into the wilderness, if I wanted to go try and kill Court Beast, if I wanted to kill KBD, if I wanted to kill Chaos Elemental, right, I have to go into the wilderness. That always, especially when you're hitting these later territories where Chaos Elemental is, you are risking getting PK'd. You just are. Ritual Majorat was the quest. I don't think I've done that. I think I skipped over that. I have to look at what I did and didn't do. Which is why it's... Oh, actually, Ferenthi actually has its thing. Oh, I don't have Ferenthi active. I should probably do that. Which is why the wilderness has garnered such a reputation over the years. It was just one of those things that, unfortunately, for a number of years, it was just the site. And even then, even after the rework, people were trading people cursed essence, and using that cursed essence, you were now subject to people just absolutely just ruining your day, right? You know, being able to PK you. Like, there's always been that. For people that I've seen, you know, like sword art, kind of think like Laughing Coffin kind of thing, right? Where they'll just relish in like making other people's days worse. That kind of thing, right? Oh man, 62, he's fine. Magic also works different. Magic also works off of a consumable system. So when you deal with magic in RuneScape, you actually deal with runes. You actually use consumable runes. So you look and you're like, oh, Kip, why do you have 16,000 cosmic and law runes in there? Well, I'm glad you asked, because there's one very specific spell that actually uses those. And naturally, even if you just want to sit and you just want to runecraft all day, you can do that. There's actually a very profitable water rune market because Animate Dead and Incite Fear are just that good. PK Assassin's Guild. Yeah, kind of thing. Yeah, that kind of thing, right? You'll have people that'll get together just to PK other players. Those perks are vilified in OSRS. Yeah, I would assume so. I assume a lot of them went back to OSRS. I would assume at the very least, right? Oh, God, it's been way too long. There is also best in slot gear. Technically, there are certain situations where you don't want to use them. Like, I don't think you use Cinderbanes for racks, right? I don't think you use Cinderbanes for racks. You might want to use certain boots on certain Slayer targets, right? Like the boots that insulated boots, right? Stuff like that. But for the most part, it comes down to there is unfortunately best in slot things. Unless something major has happened after Necromancy came out, EOF, Essence of Finality, should still be best in slot, like Necklace. I don't think they changed that, right? The Essence of Finality is also, I would argue, it's a little bit of a controversial game item, in my opinion, personally, in terms of game design. Essence of Finality is the combination of... Where's my lodestone? Essence of Finality is the culmination of three items. 2 endgame necklaces and 1 Hydrix. Hydrix is a very, very special gemstone, and you have to have an alchemical Hydrix, which requires invention components. Endgame gear. Like, this is endgame gear. Oh, that is a list. Oh, that's why I don't have access to it. I haven't built it yet because of the 4.4 update. Okay. So, Essence of Finality, it gives you just all of these stat bonuses. It gives you plus 56 in regards to how the stats work. I don't know how they math out particularly. It gives you melee damage, range damage, and magic damage, and necromancy damage now, all plus 56. That's about like a tier 70 armor set, like level 70 armor set. So like above Ruin, above Dragon, right? I think you're looking at probably like Barrows or something like that. And you also get a prayer bonus to it. You know, it's whatever. Hybrid armor is generally bad except for this. The thing is, not only is it effectively wearing a tier 70 armor slot in your necklace slot, right, around your neck, you can take any weapon in the game with a special attack, right? So, for example, my the staff I currently have, right, Fractured Staff of Armadyl, it has the special attack instability, right? And that's the one I mentioned earlier, where you activate this for the next 30 seconds. Every time you crit, you're able to do an auto. Every time you crit, it automatically does an additional auto attack. So you just damage per damage, right? I think they nerfed it a little bit, but but the point remains the same. So realistically, if I wanted to, something like the Fractured Staff of Armadyl, I could break it down and throw it into the Essence of Finality. That's why I'm using, my main setup is usually this, because dual wielding just does insane DPS with seismics, and then I end up swapping because there's not really a reason to go. I would love to get Prey, but Prey doesn't really do anything. It's negligible. And then you swap over to this when you need it, and then you swap back to seismics, but then you have I'm trying to figure out where it's at. Tempest of Armadyl, which is the channel from the Battle Staff of Armadyl. And so you see how design philosophy wise, well, when you're playing something like 14, right, you have your focus, if you will, right? You're playing monk, right? We can meme monk with dragon kick, the hotbar, right? Or you're playing black mage, right? Black mage, you're gonna hit fire, 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 swap, ice, ice, regain, right? Gonna make sure your thunder's up 60% of the time, most likely on higher game content, right? And you're just gonna go for ARR, let's put it that way, right? I know ley lines get involved in there when you get to Heaven's Ward, but instead of just doing that, suddenly you have to worry about making sure your G-Conch is up. Then you need to make sure that you have your Corruption Blast that needs to be up. If you're going to use your Omni Power, right? You have targets around you. You want to make sure you get your Greater Chain off. Then you're going to fire off your Omni Power. Once your ult's ready, you're going to use Tsunami. But then your Adrenaline, effectively think like AP, right? MP for effectively every class. Then your Adrenaline's probably going to be really shot. And there's just make sure your Sunshine's up as often as you can get it, which is another one of your ults, making sure you just do more damage. There's a lot more to look at. And so you see why people like this. But when you're someone like me who doesn't have a whole lot of time, suddenly you're running into a bit of an issue. History with PKs and PK set. No, I get it. I've lost billions of GP in the wilderness. I get it. I don't necessarily have a love for PKers. I really don't. So understand that going to 14... that actually explains a lot of my mannerisms, right? Well, Kip, you're an ARR. Why do you have a level 90 red mage and a black mage? Why are you still just leveling up and leveling roulette, right? Why do you want to do this, right? It's because you can start to see the game doesn't start until you're 90. When you're using prayers, right? So prayers are necessary for this game. They're nerfed since old school, because old school does 100% mitigation from my understanding. RuneScape 3 only does 60, I think, where if you're fighting an opponent, right? Oh, hi, sad boy. What up? If you're fighting, and this is relevant in any sort of boss content, right? You have protection from magic, protection from ranged, protection from melee, and soul split. Each of these do different things that are relevant in endgame content. So if I'm fighting a boss that does magic attacks at me, right? Like Jad in Fight Club, right? It's a Fight Club. Fight Cave, right? And I got him behind a rock or something. Yeah, I'm going to be using Mage when he does the Mage hit. He's going to throw the rocks on me. Suddenly I'm going to do the ranged hits, right? And I'm going to dance between those two. And now when you start getting really spicy is when you have actual prayers. I have curses on. You have actual prayers on. And then when you start getting into, oh crap, I'm losing HP, right? And you can't necessarily eat, or you're having trouble off-ticking your prayer pots, right? Which 14 players know what I mean by ticks, right? Suddenly to eat the big hit from Jad, oh cool, now I'm going to just use Soul Split, damage, 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 damage. He's going to throw the rocks down, then go back to eat the hit, right? You see how not only do you have to make sure your mitigations are up, right? You have to make sure as you're doing this, you're making sure your G-Conch is going off. You got to make sure that you're doing your other mitigation. You got to make sure you're staying healthy. You need to make sure that you're going in your inventory and you're kit swapping, right? You see how this leads to an interesting game state where there's a lot to consider. And I'm sure 13... Oh, you made a new main. Nice. Jad is fun to fight. I love Jad. Jad is great. And I love that in TzKal-Zuk, you fight 3 Jad. Very fun boss phase, actually. And you fight Hurakan after. It's actually kind of cool. But this goes to exemplify. So when I come to 14, and I'm playing ARR, and it comes down to, Kip, like, what do you mean? Just you're playing Black Mage. Just hit the funny fire button. You're out of mana, swap to ice. Oh, now your magic's full. Swap back to fire. Just keep going, right? So that is a very interesting place to come from RuneScape, and very interesting to come back from Final Fantasy XIV. We're kind of going over some RuneScape 3 right now, and kind of coming back to it with my experience in 14, because I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy XIV, so I've been very, very interested to come back and kind of take a look at this. Black Magician, right? I do love Black Mage. Black Mage is my go-to class. But even then, this is just magic, right? So he actually has a good example of that. So that cape right there, that's the one before this one. So remember the fire cape from old school RuneScape? The fire cape from Jad Fight Cave? That gets torn off in Fight Kiln, and that gets torn apart, and you actually get this, the Kiln Cape, and then from the Kiln Cape, you've beat Zuk, and then you're able to put an Igneous Stone on it, making it the Igneous Cowl, whatever it is, magic, melee, or ranged, which I have not beaten hardcore Zuk yet, so naturally I don't have the triple cape, but it is one of those that this is, for all intents and purposes, outside of that specific interaction, best in slot. Provide some feedback for beta if you haven't already. What beta? Sorry, I'm a little lost there. My bank's also messy. We don't talk about my bank. Whilst you have objects, it's so fucking good. You can have presets in your bank which help a little bit. There's a combat beta going on right now. I don't know. I actually didn't hear about that. I honestly came back to this. Combat beta is to fix hit chance for magic, melee, and range. I think there's more pressing issues that they need to fix with melee, though, because melee's still hit capped, right? Melee's the only style that's hit capped in the game from last I heard. Which, so, for those of you that come from 14, WoW, etc., you have your 3 styles, right? You got magic, melee, and range. And technically, I guess necromancy now, I actually haven't looked into that. I should probably look into that at some point, especially because I'm sure it's going to come in handy. Sure, it ties in the animate dead somehow. No, melee's still hit capped. And melee also has the unfortunate aspect of it of trying to do too much, if that makes sense. Damage ranges are squished too. Memorize my valuables for my general drug. Yeah, I need to do that. They got rid of hit cap melee. When? When was this? Because I need to tell Yutaka that. Cool. I'm going to have him look into that because he plays melee on the beta. Okay, so I would have to do that. So tonight I have some veteran submissions I have to read for Veterans Day. However, this coming week, I'm more than happy to try out the beta. Like, I'm more than happy to do that. Okay, yeah, finishing my thoughts on melee. So, melee has the unfortunate aspect to it, and I really wish I could just... Oh, I Necrite Spirits. Give me a second so I can actually kind of showcase it. Why do I have an antique chest here? Sorry, give me 1 second, because it's going to be... I can actually put this in... Nope, I can't put in necromancy. I should actually probably get involved in farming. Okay. Melee should be 3, I think. What do you mean object I can't bank? Fuck off! I know I can bank that. Oh, it's probably the cash bag, honestly. It's a little better if I showcase it, in my opinion. That's magic. That's range. Oh, I forgot I got BBs. Okay. So we're going to rock with this for a second, right? I'm not going to turn on my god book or anything, and I have enough that I can repair stuff, right? Let's go to... I mean, really anything, right? So melee is one of those that has a lot going on with it. And we're going to test this out on just something really stupid for a minute. Melee 1 is either tanky or glass cannony. And what I mean by that is if you actually want to do the maximum amount of damage, and this was, of course, when I last played, right? When I last played, we had, Civil War 2 was the quest that came out. So it's been, yes, a minute since I've actually played it. So when we're talking about melee, we can actually just go to not ED4, but we can actually go to we can go to the Zuk's area. When we're talking about melee, there's some shared cooldowns, and as you notice when you look at Langs, which Langs is dual wielding, yes, dual wielding is going to put out a lot more damage. When you're looking at something like Langs, you are noticing it says that Hurricane and Destroy no longer share a cooldown. So not only are you going to have instances where, say, if I equip Big Sword, if I equip Big Cleaver, right, suddenly my Destroy and Quake are no longer sharing a cooldown. Are sharing a cooldown, which leads to an already subpar experience because suddenly you can't use certain abilities in tandem with each other that you could otherwise, hence why I have Langs. Now, what melee is doing, furthermore, is my Robes of Havoc, that's Zamorak set. It allows you to do a lot more damage. So set bonus of 4, maximum adrenaline is increased by 20%, right? You have the ability to camp above your maximum adrenaline, but in comparison to Masterwork or even Trim Masterwork armor, you're taking a massive, massive hit. Furthermore, melee is wanting to do its berserk thing, right? Oh, I'm going to play a melee class. Oh, I'm going to do big Zerk tactics, right? However, melee, as of Zuk's update, right, which Zuk and the design team, as I fair, has already made it transparent what they're wanting to do with melee, unless they have an update on that. If you look at something like the TzKal-Zuk, right, the TzKal's special attack, Igneous Cleave, is going to be, trying to figure out where it's worded. It's gonna cause a lasting bleed. Is the thing, is the short of it. Causing that lasting bleed. Bleed is not affected by berserk. So melee. Yes, melee is all gas, sad, but it is all gas. You want to keep going, and with melee specifically, you're going to need to make sure that you're keeping up your rotation. You want to make sure that you're soul splitting. You want to make sure that you're keeping up your mitigations. You're going to want to make sure that you're doing that. Magic and ranged attacks, though, yes, you are. Yes, you have I think it's a weakness to magic, but a strength against range, if I remember that correctly. So if we go here really quick, and we're just gonna. I'm on the wrong hotbar, aren't I? Yeah, hotbar switching in RuneScape is a thing. Ugh, there we go. I think I have most of this set to auto anyways. Generally, how I play is I'll set my stuff to auto, so that way it does the next in line. And you'll notice, even at the high level that I am, I'm still taking a lot of fucking damage. Whoops. Left my prayer on. So suddenly we're going to hurricane. But you see how much damage I'm taking, so thus you're going to require a lot more mitigations, right? But you can't even... So when you get to the point, right? So I would argue other styles have done melee... I've done combat a lot better than melee can. Now you get up to your ult... I have to leave or else I'm actually going to die. Now if you get up to your ult, right? And you go for berserk, your berserk does not affect your bleeds. So if you use your Igneous Cleave, right? If you use your Igneous Cleave from... TzKal, right? Or technically, the play what you do is you throw your TzKal into your EOF, your Essence of Finality, although technically you have Ceradome and Godsword in there, so that actually fills a very niche purpose. Like, melee doesn't have a lot of these. You start to run out of gas really quick, and suddenly your abilities aren't mishmashing with each other. Sure, you can Zerk, but with the newfound focus on bleeds, Zerk isn't affecting bleeds. So if we're focusing on bleeds, where's our support for bleed? It's trying to do two different things that don't mesh together. Whereas something like Magic, right? Magic has Animate Dead. Magic has Crypt Bloom set. Magic has FSOA. Technically, Grimoire can be used by anybody because Grimoire pages increase crit rate, if I remember correctly. But it just turns into this mess in my own experience and talking with others who have done melee. I think melee, up until this alleged beta that's happening, I think melee has been one of those styles that's been treated incredibly unfairly. When you look at something like Protox's video, and I absolutely love Protox, I love listening to his content. When you look at something like Protox's video, and he says that, the easiest way to do this is going to be using magic, right, at the time, mage, FSOA, Crypt Bloom, right? When you have such a best in slot hit, it's problematic. But the thing that Jagex does is, instead of making everything up to that power level, they seemingly nerf everything down. So that's kind of my isms in regards to melee, and I'm out of practice. That's, why I'm taking so much damage anyways. Jaws of the Abyss and Abyssal Scourge competing for equipment slots. Yes. Magic, as you saw my magic set, right? My magic set is, yes, it has switches. It has my FSOA. Yes, it has my my seismics. Yes, absolutely. However, to do a proper melee switch, right, I have Langs. Cool, but now I got to do Abyssal Scourge, because Abyssal Scourge has got to put stacks of, what is it? Abyssal Parasites, I think. Yeah, Abyssal Parasites, right? And then I got to swap back to get the full bonus of Langs, right? So I want to make sure that my Hurricane and Destroy no longer share a cooldown, because DPS go burr. But what happens if I don't have my Zerk up and I want to do a mini Zerk, right? Well, I got to go Zeros Godsword, got to go ZGS, put a black hole at my feet, do like 50% more damage. Okay. Now, you don't have to go TzKal. This, I just like the boss he's from. I do like Zuk. However, then you do your Igneous Cleave to get some DOT, but suddenly you're falling behind. But do you see how many switches this is going to do? So take the speed of the combat that I was just at fighting those Tazar, and now, you're having to add all these switches in, right? And oh, what if I need to barricade, right? Because there's a very specific section in the TzKal-Zuk boss fight where you have, I think it's Igneous Kel'Kots, and they throw typeless, magic range typeless at you, I think it is. There's a pattern to it. The easiest way is to just swap to barricade. Cool, now I gotta equip my shield. Now I gotta barricade that. Cool, now I gotta swap back to my weapon. And imagine if you, I mean, usually you have these bound to keys, right? But what if you misclick? So instead of, say I was on weapon, right? And I'm like, okay, I need to swap back to my Langs. And oh, well, shit, there goes my ZGS. Well, now I got to go equip this again. And now you're going to be off kilter because things aren't in the place supposed to be, right? It isn't the case for Magic is the thing. You swap to FZO and then go back to Seismics or Praisals if you have the money. I don't have the money for Praisals. Fuck that. I would love to. Fuck that. Like, you know what I'm saying, though? Needs better ability to reallocate power budget. Yes, absolutely. I would argue. I think Melee just needs a focus, or if they're wanting to do that, they need to split tree somewhere. Melee is way more reliant on its gear than the other three styles. Its base ability set for Melee is really bad compared to the gear that you wear. Yes, I would argue so, yes. And that's where you get something like Abyssal Spikes on Masterwork Armor and stuff like that. You're very reliant on your gear. Yes, I could absolutely take less damage, but I'd have to have something like my Masterwork set on, or go for my trimmed Masterwork set. I think I'm in the middle of that, actually, still. I was working on that. But it leads to just weird interactions where you are very, 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 very gear reliant. Whereas something like, let's see if I even remember how to do range. So if I swap to my range set, right, like I have my ranged ability, I have my dark bow in here, I have my Serenic Hauber. This is tier 90, right? So effectively the same thing. Tier 90, Blight Bounds, Augmented, Equilibrium, Precise 6. Sure, extra book for Scripture of Wen. We do have Pernix's Quiver, so we can Hydrix and Onyx Bolts. Technically, I could go Ruby. When I'm fighting Zuk, it's very, very, very good to have those Onyx Bolts in there, honestly. Yeah, cool. What do you have? You have your fleeting boots. Technically, I need to get the upgraded version of that by beating Raksha. But like, this is effectively the set. I'm sure that Bow of the Last Guardian is actually a little better, but I mean, I don't know. I'm just a fan of dual wielding crossbows. To be fair, they're kind of cute. They're kind of cool. Also, you get to say they're BBCs in complete in an absolute straight face because they are Blightbound crossbows. So. And yeah, so like in this, you know, you're doing your Needle Strike, you're doing your Radar Ricochet, like you have your rotation here. But notice that like this kit is, yeah, you are correct. This kit focuses, what do you mean, oh my god, Max, what? You notice that this kit focuses on a lot more of its skills, where Melee focuses on a lot more of its gear. So that leads into a power imbalance. Reworks Melee's base, reworks Melee's base abilities, and then you can make its gear icing on the cake. Yes, I would agree with that, RF. I would absolutely agree with that. And don't get me wrong, as somebody that part of this, and that's actually why I'm actually glad Kiwi's here, this helps explain a lot of my mannerisms when moving to a game like 14. This helps to understand, you know, well, why are you so intrigued on being best in slot, right? You can go do ultimate weapon just fine. Sure, if you're going for, I don't know, like an ultimate, right? Yeah, you're going to need a team that arguably knows what they're doing most of the time, and you're going to want whatever best in slot you can. And yes, as far as I'm aware, there are best in slot gears for 14. However, I would argue it's simplified to the point that allows players to more freely engage with the systems. When you have a dingus like me that's able to pick up Monk and be like, oh, cool, yeah, I just go back and forth with this funny little rotation in 14. When you have a max in 14 job, you just get your whole rotation from the outset. Yes, and that's important. You have to do quests. Your what's the soul split? Your soul split is quest lock. Your amps, right? Anguish, Turmoil, Torment. Those are quest locked. Your curses are quest locked. Yes, you can do things on Melee, right? On base prayers, absolutely. However, prayers were not as overpowered as they were in regard to old school RuneScape. They're just not. Like it's night and day. And so I look at Black Mage, or I look at Monk, or I look at I almost said Gunzerker. I look at any of the 14 classes, and I come from this understanding of, well, you're not getting your kit at all, which is not the case. RuneScape doesn't have that aside from Necromancy. Do you actually get your full rotation out of Necromancy? I might be curious about Necromancy. I'm probably going to go into that at some point. And it's such a difference. I like both of them for different reasons. I think 14 has a lot going for it. I love its story. And a lot of my like ability to kind of look at quests, right? And I kind of have issues with some of the quests, and it's like, oh god, everything's MSQ locked, is because I've had to do one small favor. Because I've had to do As a Xandra's quest, because I've had to do Temple at Sentiston, because I've had to do all these quests. The Prif quest line, Regicide, right? That's locking a lot of the game. And even then, I still have to do Livid Farm to get Disruption Barrier. You know, you're going to have people trying to get the Limitless Codex. You're going to have Ingenuity of the Humans you got to get. You have, even if you're going into Magic, right? I'm still missing one of the really stupid codexes still. I can't remember which one it is. But I mean, I have Greater Ricochet. Maybe that was it, actually. Maybe I dropped money on Greater Ricochet. I can't remember. But you know, yes, you have skills that you upgrade. Can you imagine if you had to do, like, say if you had to do, not that I know who Omega Weapon is, right? I know they exist. Say if you had to do Omega Weapon, right? I know Kiwi's listening. If you had to do Omega Weapon and you had to get a rare drop, like how all of the bosses from ARR drop the horse whistles, right? And they can also drop Nightmare. Say if you had to fight Omega Weapon, and every single time you fought Omega Weapon, you had a chance to hit that rare Nightmare horse whistle drop table. And that would give you a codex. That would give you a book. And that codex you could, yes, sell on the market board, but you could also use it to upgrade one of your things to, like, Greater Ricochet. So imagine if you had to buy Gnashing Fang combo. And that's where RuneScape comes from, too. So yes, I do agree that, like, yeah, I should have to go through my class quests. Yes, I should have to understand how to use ley lines as Black Mage once I hit Heaven's Ward. Yes, I should have to know how Red Mage and Samurai get additional bars as you go into additional expansions. I'm totally for that. And if anything, it's a streamlined experience. I've just spent way too much time in RuneScape. I've spent way too much investment into the game. And I thought this would just be a way to kind of relay my thoughts on the game. And also, it's just a shout back to early Kip. I played a lot of RuneScape in the past, and now I can look at other MMOs, specifically 14 and even Lord of the Rings Online, that I enjoy very, very much. Lord of the Rings Online is one of those that I haven't played in a hot minute and intend to at some point, but I have a lot on my plate right now. It's going between these two. Imagine if you had to buy continuation. I'm not sure which one that is, but like imagine if you had to buy Flare or buy Blizzard, right, in 14. That's kind of what you're doing, right? Because you have, yeah, sure, you can get things like Dragon Breath for Magic, right? What's one of the big ones, was it? Needle Strike, you didn't have to buy. Ricochet, I think it was Fragmentation Shot, right? You had to get from Soul Wars. Like, you have to do some... Imagine if you had to do ARR, specific ARR minigames or fates. And you had to do those to get currencies or the chance to get a drop for a skill that's relevant and required for your job skill, right? Like what 14 has Tank Stance. Imagine having to go back all the way to a Realm Reborn and having to grind the Odin Fate over and over and over to get the chance to get a codex to drop Tank Stance. You know, a thing that's relevant for your style. And I feel people are going to be like, well, Kip, that's you know, a little bit overkill. Technically, people can get away with, you know, people can get away with using under certain styles, right? If I go back to Magic, for example. Give me a second. If I go to Magic, for example, Corruption Blast, I'd argue, is actually necessary on higher tiers. What is Corruption Blast Codex even going for right now, actually? I'm very curious. But it's relevant because damage over time, it's just free damage, right? But you need it for your rotation, and it's also locked behind a specific boss. Is it the Menaphos series, or is it actually, I can't remember what it drops from, but you have stuff that's relevant to your style. G-Chain is, think like Flare and Flare 2. Like, one of these is just going to be better. I know it's not a one-to-one comparison, but it's a skill that's relevant to your kit, but just better. Mazcap Codex, yes, there it is. They've gone down then if they're only 50 mil, actually. They've gone down. And then even then, so when you clear bosses, like when you clear Zuk, right? Bolsters the Omni Power ability, reducing the adrenaline cost and causing you to hit 4 times that reduced damage, right? So instead of 100% adrenaline, suddenly Omni Power is 60% adrenaline, hits 4 times instead of 5, and hits 90 to 180. I think it was like 100 to 100 to 200 something before. You see how suddenly you're developing best in slot styles, which personally is why I'm a fan of 14 in a lot of capacities. Fun fact, in 14, tank stance used to make you do less damage. I actually didn't know that. That makes sense, but I actually didn't know that. Well, 14 has also evolved. We used to have belts in 14. I wasn't around for a lot of this, to clarify. We used to have belts in 14. You used to be locked into whatever, depending on your like your birth sign, your protector, your race. Like Lalafell got certain buffs, right? Like those were all locked behind certain things. And you had what was it, AP for melee classes? So you had MP for magic class, we had AP for melee classes, and they got rid of that really fucking quick, from what I understand. And they've just fixed a lot of these things, so that way it's TP, thank you. So it's a lot more approachable to your average person. Is this to say not to play RuneScape? No. Is this to say you have to play 14? No. I'm enjoying it, and I would recommend it. If you like MMOs, I would absolutely recommend you give 14 a try. If you think that this intrigues you, if you think that you would like to get into RuneScape, but specifically for PvE, right? You know, player versus monster, PvE player versus enemies, right? I think there's something here you could like. There is going to be dead content, such as Castle Wars, dead minigame. Soul Wars, I think, too. Dead minigame. The only thing that happened was race affected stats. That's it. I thought in 14, it used to be that your sign, maybe it was 1.0, your sign and stuff actually affected that, but I could also be wrong. I'd be very open to citation on proving that wrong. RuneScape certainly has the value in player-sided mechanics and progression. There are a lot of hoops. Yes, that is the perfect way to describe it. There are a lot of hoops to jump through. And even then, right, I don't know how 14 raiding works in the end game. I've heard that you definitely have, you know, raid food, raid potions, etc. I can tell you, if I'm using my magic set and I was going to go into something like TzKal-Zuk right now, I have my switches. I have my barrier ability, right? I have my shield to operate, to throw barricade out, right? I have my dual wield seismic set. Then I swap over here when I need crit damage, and I swap back to seismics. Realistically, I should be camping FSOA a lot more since I paid fucking $3 bill for it. However, that's beside the point. If I need extra healing, I have Augmented Excalibur, Activate Excalibur for X amount of time. I regenerate health. I have my Elven Ritual Shard, which technically a lot of people don't even use. I think it's neat because you activate it. It's like as a cooldown of 5 minutes, but you regain prayer points without having to use prayer pots. I have my ruin pouches, which are filled to the brim mostly. I definitely used a lot of water last time I was playing. I can see you have your elder overloads because you need overloads because something going above max stats to do damage and heat and be defensive. Suddenly it just kind of works. I have my adrenaline potions. Say if an enemy's about to be phased and I'm at 30 and then I need to drink my adrenaline potion to get, you know, up to 60 to maybe omni power it. Cool, it's there. I have my Saradomin brew flasks, right? That way I can regain HP when I do this. So I eat flask, and then what about the negative side effects? Well, that's why I have super restore flasks, 6 doses. I take my super restore flasks to get rid of the negative effects caused by the Saradomin brew flask, right? And that's, once again, that's a single part of this. That doesn't count me having to go for mechanics, right? How like Ultimate Weapon has little things that come out and they cross themselves and you have to dodge those. So think that I have to do that, and I have to make sure my overload is up every few minutes, and I have to make sure that I'm swapping my weapons appropriately. On top of that, I need to make sure that I'm managing my health and prayer, hence coming into Saradomin and food and, you know, super restores, Elven Ritual Shard, etc. And on top of that, if we're adding melee into the mix, suddenly I have to worry about even more switches. Prayer swaps too. Yes, you're absolutely correct. What if you're fighting Jad, right? Oh, cool. Jad's about to throw the rocks down on me. Pray range. Cool. Now I'm going to soul split because I really need health. I don't want to waste food. I know I'm going to need this food on Zuck. I know he's going to hit like an absolute truck. So I got to save that. I better swap to soul split. But oh crap, now he's going to throw the magic hit at me. Now I got to, reflect magic at that point. There's so many parts that go in with each other that it's honestly kind of wild. But that's also kind of the magic of it. And if you think that that's worth your time, I think there's a game here for you. There's a lot to keep track of. There's a lot going on. And trust me, endgame builds get stupid. So, for example, if I examine Fractures Alpha Armadillo, it doesn't even have a price, right? Well, that's because it's also augmented, but it's like 3.5 bill above max cash. Last I checked, it should still be 2.1. So thus you get into Spirit Shards and how to do trades over max cash, which is an entire really fun, interesting dive in itself. But there's a lot, especially end game drops. I don't know how Iron Mans do it in 2023. I don't know how they do it. Food and potions used for progression rating only. So, I mean, yeah, I guess that's fair. Hi, how's it going? But, like, you see, and I think this also exemplifies to people like Kiwi and Rev. Like, when I play 14, these are things that go through my mind. So when I'm told the system isn't that complex and that you're totally overreacting and overthinking this, it's kind of a nice break for me. When it's like, yeah, no, I'm cool. I definitely am overthinking this. I'm definitely trying to reinvent the wheel by keeping my thunder up 90+% of the time. Level 74 in cooking, you know, you can make H food. Yeah, but Rocktail are just that good. Like, Rocktail do 2,300. Technically, I think Sailfish do more, but Rocktail just have a better price point. If I was going cheaper, I'd do Beltfish. I'd have to see what the current actual bossing food is. In-game 14 is very optimized. They can clear tier, and that tier's crafted gear, which I definitely appreciate. Like, if I like going into Zuk, which I'll do another stream where I do Zuk again. Like, that takes a minute, and it really is engaging. Like, it takes me a minute. Get thrown at you left and right. Yeah, that is also fair. Rocktails, like, they're just so common. So that's also another thing to know. Alas, I think that will do it for this little rant on RuneScape in 14, if you will. Which, once again, if you enjoy RuneScape, if you enjoy 14, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I enjoy both of these games. I enjoy them for different reasons, and it's actually it's a little refreshing to actually go to 14 for some of these things, because, man, RuneScape just, sometimes it just doesn't. But sometimes it does. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. Let me know if you found this through the Kip TV channel. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know, I guess, what your highest skill is, what you're proud of, what your best accomplishment is in 14, and RuneScape respectively. Both, if you will, actually. I'm very, very curious. Yes, I will be trying Necromancy. I'm going to try to pair this with Final Fantasy Fridays if I can. This might be a Thursday upload. I'm not doing TCG Thursdays anymore. Just Master Duel hasn't been agreeing with me. But I'll start playing these two in tandem with each other, because I actually do need to get content done in both, and this makes sure that I'm able to do both of those in a timely fashion. So yeah, let me know if you agreed with this, if there's something I should try specifically, if you have any hints, tips, I guess, etc. And yeah, your greatest accomplishment 14 is Findung what? 47 in mining. Yeah, progress. Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you are interested in this, I will be playing more. And if you are curious, or think we should do a new player event, right? I'll more than happy to make some Rune Plate body sets and get together to try and help some new players out, because it's definitely daunting to get into this game. And seeing Dragon Spit stream old school and how much I know about RuneScape, I don't know everything, don't get me wrong. How much I know about RuneScape, and that there's people that I'm sure genuinely would want to get into this game and play this game and have fun in a cool looking rune set. I'm absolutely more than happy to see about obliging in that. But alas, I will see you all in the next one.